Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial on back bends. So we're going to take a look at two common postures that you see a lot and experience a lot in vinyasa classes, in classical hatha classes, Iyengar, Ashtanga, really across the board. And back bending postures are really important postures, especially in our modern world. And yes, it is truly impressive when you see a photograph or if you happen to be practicing next to someone who can bend their body completely backwards in seemingly unimaginable ways. It is truly impressive, but there are some real health benefits to back bending, and if you take just a few minutes here to understand the foundation of how to begin bending the spine in this way, it will lead to a lifetime of both healthful practice, but also it will actually give you the benefits that you're meant to have from these back bending postures. So why are back bending postures so important? Well, one, they really integrate the strength and coordination of the back and inherently the spine. And if you've been journeying in this yoga world for some time, you're probably starting to gather that the health of the spine really has a lot to do with the health of the entire body and every system in it. So back bending is helping us to strengthen and integrate the efforts of the back of the body, but it also has a really special action on the heart and the lungs by way of helping us energetically to open the front of the body. And all of us know, especially in this particular moment, so many of us seated during the day, hovering over our computers, hovering over a desk, and the majority of time we're kind of letting our bodies curl forward. And sometimes that's just the demand of modern life, and a lot of times it's actually truly, literally feeling the emotional and the mental weight of life in the moment and sort of a curling in of our bodies to protect ourselves. So back bending really helps us, one, to build the strength to keep us upright and open in life, and two, gives us the capability to reopen and really strengthen our ability to stay open mentally, emotionally, as well as physically as we're engaging in life. So there are two really super important things about back bending, and then we're just going to jump into building these two postures with a few more words than maybe ordinarily you would be able to hear from an instructor during a normal class. And the two things that are really super important in building your back bending practice are, one, to lengthen the spine. So every time you move into a movement where you're going to begin to bend backwards in space, the first thing that you always want to do is to try to lengthen the spine, whether it's sitting up taller, standing up taller, or we're going to see on the floor, whether it's kind of moving the head and toes in opposite direction to find as much natural length through the spine as you can. And the second thing, in order to support that length, is a consistent, light engagement of the abdomen. And that action of the abdomen we often describe as kind of zipping up a wetsuit or zipping up some pants that are just a little too tight. And sometimes how that translates into words is like a drawing up and in of the belly button toward the spine, or just drawing the low belly up and in. And if you can imagine, right, the minute we start to bend backwards, not only does the heart and the lungs open naturally, but the belly kind of wants to go on holiday too. So we want to be really conscientious in the beginning to build our capability to hold our structure and to begin to bend in incredible ways. So if you're going to follow along physically, just make sure that you've rolled out a mat or have some space. We're just going to be laying on our bellies for this little tutorial. So create some space and then make your way onto your belly. The first posture that we're going to build is Sphinx Pose. So on your belly, you're going to lift one leg and internally rotate it, stretching the toes behind you, and lift the other leg and do the same. This little action helps to set the pelvis in a neutral place so that the pelvis isn't still rolling backwards, which actually moves our body forward. That may have been a little too technical. If it didn't make sense, don't worry, just make sure you lengthen your legs behind you. To move into Sphinx Pose, you're gonna prop yourself up on your elbows here. Take a look and make sure that the elbows are under the shoulders. It's usually a little farther forward than you think that it is. The 10 fingers are spreading really nice and wide, and the forearms are rested and connected to the mat. Make sure that your hands aren't spinning in or out, but are directly in front of the elbows to the best of your ability. Great. Here we go. We lengthened the legs to get a little length in the lower part of the spine. And here, to begin lengthening the rest of the spine, we're going to push down into the floor just a little bit and then pull back with the elbows toward the hips, as if you want to slide your body forward in space. But of course, you're stuck down on your mat. And with that little action, you should feel a little lengthening and drawing forward of the spine, and in particular, the heart. And then to that second point, without moving the back of your body, see if you can imagine drawing the belly button up away from the mat. It might not actually lift off the mat, but use your imagination and imagine that little action of drawing your belly button up and away from the mat, keeping the legs lengthening behind you and keeping the heart sliding through the gateway of the upper arms forward and gently up. Here in Sphinx Pose, we're beginning to open and integrate the upper and a little bit the middle spine. The head is most easily held in a neutral position, so either gazing at the front edge of the mat, maybe beginning to look up, but it's really not necessary to put tension into the neck or the cervical spine, because we're really beginning to work on opening the thoracic spine and a little bit into the middle spine. So keeping the head neutral in Sphinx Pose is perfectly fine and probably the safest thing for your neck. So again, I'm reaching my toes back behind me. I'm pressing down and pulling the elbows back toward the hips as if I could slide my body forward. This helping me to glide my heart, my upper back through the arms forward and gently up. Relaxing the shoulders away from the ears, relaxing the face, drawing the belly button gently up and away from the mat. And then one last inhale here to feel the heart maybe lifting forward and up any amount more. And on an exhale, just lowering down to the mat. And to rest in between back bends, it's always nice to make a pillow with your hands and then just let your forehead rest there. And a little wiggle of the bum back and forth is a really nice way to let any tension out of the low back. But if you built the posture knowledgeably and well, technically you should never feel tension in the low back when you're back bending. Good. All right. So the next posture we're going to build with just a little bit more intention for the tutorial is Bhujangasana, or Cobra Pose. So again, if you're following along physically with me, go ahead and re-establish that nice alignment with the legs. It almost should feel like you're doing Tadasana, mountain pose, just standing upright, but on your belly. For Cobra Pose, we're going to place the palms next to the rib cage with the fingertips just under the armpits. So not directly under the shoulders and not too far back, but gliding along the sides of the chest. Good. Reaching the toes back behind you, engaging the legs, but engaging them gently. Here, drawing the belly gently up and away from the mat, finding that little sensation of like zipping up your pants that are a little too tight. The elbows are going to stay hugging toward the sides of the body. The shoulders will stay relaxed. As the toes reach back with a little more effort back behind you, imagine the top of the head reaching forward,
almost as if someone is playing tug of war with your body, and one string is attached to the top of the head and the other string is attached to your toes. Make sure your tug of war teams are pulling gently, just for the idea. And then with that length, with that integration, I'm going to push gently into the palms to glide the heart forward and up. The elbows stay hugging in close to the body. The shoulders stay relaxed away from the ears, and the elbows stay bent. Good. It's a little extra effort on those arms. Keep drawing the belly gently up and in. Relax your forehead. If the forehead lifted up as you lifted your heart, here you might consider lifting the chin forward and up a little bit, but again, in the beginning, it's not so important to engage the neck. Maybe one more little lift forward with the center of the heart. And then on an exhale, lowering down to the mat. Make that pillow with your hands. Rest your forehead and shake the legs maybe a little bit behind you.
Great. So these two postures, really important foundational postures for your whole journey with back bending. And even if right now it doesn't feel like you're doing so much for the back, you're actually building the best possible foundation for whatever kind of mansion or castle of back bending you end up building in your practice. Please try to remember those two little tips for back bending. Lengthen the spine always before you begin to fall and tumble backwards, and keep that belly gently engaged to support the length of the spine so that you have the most space possible to begin to move your body backwards, opening the body backwards. And just one last little tip that I love to encourage students to think about, and that is when we think about back bends, we literally think about bending backwards, which, in all honesty, we're not necessarily living our lives bending backwards. Well, maybe you are bending backwards, actually, for your family, for your friends. Okay, it is a metaphor. But instead of thinking, I need to bend backwards, because now we're entering into the yoga practice where we're bringing harmony back into our lives, integration back into the body, maybe you can begin to whisper to yourself, I'm opening the front of my body. Yeah, it's a small little difference, but if I enter into Bhujangasana and I think I must bend back, there's a particular kind of energy through the body, and maybe you want to experiment with this after you hit pause on the video. But another way to think about back bends are actually front body opening. And in this way, you give yourself space to be relaxed, to breathe. And yes, the back of the body is in fact bending, but the front of the body is opening and broadening and becoming more spacious. And we're working on the ability to have the strength back there to hold us open as we walk into and embrace all of the different situations in life. So I hope this tutorial helps just a little bit. Back bending is absolutely amazing. Even if you stay your whole life in the realm of Bhujangasana, doing it the right way can give you a lifetime of benefits and a lifetime of exploration of keeping the heart and the lungs open and really having a steady spine in life. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you on the mat.